What's up, guys? Welcome to Matt W Fishing. And today our video is gonna be a little bit different. Usually we have tournament videos, practice videos, things like that. But today we're gonna do something that's important, but I don't feel like it's talked about too much, you know, and that's fishing knots. It's the knot that you tie to your bait. And listen, I feel like everyone thinks that they tie a great knot, but I've been on the water with some very good fishermen, and I see the knots that they tie, and I'm just like, if you keep competing against me, you can keep tying that knot. But, you know, I do feel like there are a couple of knots that are, one, they're simple. That's a big key. You have to be able to tie it quickly and efficiently and correctly. The other one is it strong? That's important, because if you're tying a knot that's only 60% breaking strength, and there's knots out there that are closer to 90 and 100 that take the same amount of time and effort to tie, why aren't you tying them? But let's get right into it. We're gonna go into a lure knot. I feel like that's something that everyone can relate to, everyone's gonna like. And listen, I'm gonna tie the knot that everybody ties. Most people don't even know what it's called. They just call it a fisherman's knot. And I see them do this. They'll go through, and they grab it, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they get their tag, and they go through like this, and then they'll pull them both like that, and then bam. Listen, that's called a clench knot. Super effective knot. I am not saying it's not, but there is a better knot. And here's the thing about the clench knot. On this, it didn't happen on this go around, because honestly I didn't tie enough wraps. But most of the time on a clench knot, you get a burn right there. From there to there, from the knot to my finger, you get a burn in your line, and you've just made life harder on yourself. You just weaken the line by tying your knot. So I'm gonna go find a pair of scissors, because I did not grab those, and I'm gonna teach you probably the best knot to tie directly to your lures. I'll be right back. All right, found some big old dike cutters. Let's cut that off. I'm gonna show you the knot that I like to use. I just feel it works so well. You can put a ton of wraps into it, which I believe makes the knot stronger. And you can cinch that knot really tight down onto your bait. And that's the Uni Knot. Very simple. I can tie it about the same speed that most people can tie a clench knot. That's not a brag on myself. That's just me showing you that you can tie this knot fast if you practice. And I'm going to show you guys how I tie it. Get your tag, get your eye, run your line through there. And I'm going to pull out about 12 inches of line. I don't know if you guys can see that, about 12 inches of line. And right at the bait, I'm going to pinch my lines together, and with my tag, I'm going to throw a loop. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm going to throw a loop with my tag, and I'm going to pinch it, and I'm going to hold it. I don't know if you guys can see that. And with my tag, I'm going to go around my main line and the standing part of my tag line. You can tell I've done this a bunch of times, so I already got my fingers working. This is muscle memory. I'm going to take that tag, and I'm going to go around. See, there's a better background. Once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 20-pound mono. I've gone around 8 times. It should look something like that. Now here's the biggest key with every knot. Wet that puppy up. And then here's another big key with this knot. you want to pull your bait, so you have these two lines coming off the knot on this side. You have your tag and your main line going back to your rod on this side. You want to pull everything equally and give it as much assistance as possible, some lubrication, if you will. And you're gonna get to a point where it doesn't want to cinch up that much. Here's a little trick with this knot. Get your finger, squeeze the knot, and just pull it out. And I just collapsed the knot. I compressed it. And then you can wet all that. See how easy it slides? And boom, it's against the bait. Now before I go and cinch this thing up, I'm gonna wrap my hand around both the tag and the main line. Cinch it up real good. I want to tighten that knot up as tight and as streamlined as possible. Oh, I just cut myself somewhere because I'm bleeding. Oh, that's my finger. We'll be all right. There's blood on the knot. All right, you can see how the lines come out parallel like that, and this knot is super compressed. Now I can just tighten the crap out of it, and I'm just gonna cut that. Well, you can see that. Super clean knot. I mean, this knot is, and it's 20-pound test mono, and I'm pulling as hard as I can, and I can't break it. I mean, it's really a solid, strong knot. I tie that, look, I'm freaking bleeding everywhere. I tie this knot on every single bait, whether it's a worm hook, a crankbait, whatever I want a solid knot tied to my bait, I use a Uni Knot. So the next knot that I'm going to tie is a loop knot, and there's two variations that I do of this. I'll show you both. So what you want to do, you want to get your tag, and you want to throw just literally, if you have both ends of the line in your hand and you just come towards each other, you're going to throw a loop. You're going to pinch that loop with this hand, and then on this hand you're going to make another loop, and I try and pinch that with the same finger. Now that second loop, that last loop that I just made, I'm going to take it away from me. You guys can see I'm going to take it away from me. I'm going to keep pressing just so I can see the screen here. I'm going to take it away from me, and I'm going to go inside that first loop. You can see what it does there. Wet that sucker up. I'm going to kind of cinch it tight a little bit. I'm just going to shrink that loop until it's pretty dang small. I'm going to get my bait, run my tag through my bait. I'm going to get my tag, run it, I don't know if you can see there, run it through the loop, doesn't matter which side you come from. Alright, now you got your line, now you got your standing line with your loop thrown in there, and your tag is running through that loop. Now here's the biggest key. You want to find how big of a loop you want. So let's just say I want my loop to be right about there. I'm gonna get my tag, I'm gonna lay it alongside my bait, and I'm gonna grab my main line and pull it tight. And we'll just cinch it tight, and it's good to go. Bam. That is called the Canoe Man's Loop Knot. It's very simple, it's very easy, very quick to tie, and it's strong. I've experimented with it on topwater spooks. I throw it around a lot of gnarly stuff down here in South Florida. I usually put a small piece of 20-pound mono leader. I'll tie a loop knot on a spook, even if it does have a split ring, I'm still gonna do that. And man, I throw it in the reeds, I get stuck, I pull it out, the same way I would with a Uni Knot, and doesn't break, guys. I mean, the knot is so simple. When you watch it happen and come together, you're like, there's no way that holds up, just because of the dynamics of how the knot is held together. But I'm telling you, once you get that knot cinched up, it is not going anywhere. Actually tied that knot on 12-pound test fluorocarbon on a hair jig a couple weeks ago, just to give it a little bit more action, and caught one just shy of 9 pounds on it. Put a ton of heat on it. I mean, I fought it like I'd bite anything else, and I mean, fish came in the boat. I unhooked it and kept throwing and kept catching more fish. That knot is solid. What else have I mean, the true test is I actually learned that knot from my uncle down in Tampa, owner of this bar and restaurant. Great seafood, by the way. And he's a really, really simple fisherman. And, you know, he's typical spin inshore fisherman. Just, you know, 7-foot medium light spinning rod, 2,500 size reel, 15-pound braid, and then he would tie his leader knot on every single bait. Didn't matter if it was a soft plastic, hard bait, no matter what, he tied that knot. And he doesn't break fish off. I haven't heard him complain about breaking fish off. I mean, inshore fishermen, that's like their deal. They do a lot of, they do a lot of loop knots on everything that they tie, just to give it more action. Whether it does or doesn't, I really don't know. Fish haven't told me in person yet, but I do know that's a very popular thing in the inshore community, and it works. That's the biggest one. It works. Now, the second loop knot, I don't know what it's called. I usually know the names of everything, but I don't know. So we'll call this the go-to loop knot. Sure. So we get your line, and we're going to just tie an overhand knot in there. Granny knot, if you want to call it that. Same as before. You want to cinch it down real nice and tight. And then now you get your tag in, run it through the eye of our bait. Right now it's a Gambler Big Easy. And I'm going to pull my tag in through the eye of the bait. And then I'm going to go back and go back through that loop. Alright? See what we're working with now? Actually, when it does this little X pattern there, that's how you know you got it. You got it through the right side of the loop. I forgot to mention that. You want it to go through, and it's really hard to tell you guys without looking, without, you know, doing it myself. But if you pull the loop knot, you're tagged to the loop, and it looks like that, you're good. And look, see how it does it by itself? So I'm gonna set the distance that I want that knot. I'm gonna get my tag in, and I'm gonna go around my main line. Once, twice, 3 times. Now, here's the other key to this knot that I don't think a lot of people know about. See how it's got a slant to it? You want to take your tag in and go through the top of the slant, not through the bottom. So we'll just, I'm not going to worry about the twist right now. This is solely for instructional purposes. I'm going to go through the top part of the loop on the top part of the slant, wet it, and here I'm going to pull the main line. I'm going to hold the tag. I'm going to pull those away from each other. And if you tie this knot right, see how the tag is like wrapped up in the loop, and it's kind of hiding? What it's doing is when you tie it in that, when you go through that one side of the slant, it forces the tag in straight down towards the bait. So just like that, I got a loop knot, and my tag end is facing my bait. So all that's going to do is it's going to keep you more weedless. Everything's going to come streamlined over and past your knot. To whereas if you went on the other side of that slant, your tag end's going to sit out sideways, and you're just going to pick up more grass. Does it hurt the knots breaking strength if you tie it that way. I really don't know, but just the way that this knot sits, just the way that I tied it, it just looks clean, looks like very little is involved, which is honestly a big key with knots. You either want a lot of wraps around your main line, or if you're tying a loop knot like this, you want as few loops and turns involved as possible. Which, like I just said, is different from, like, when does more loops on a knot give you more strength? A uni knot? You do reach a certain threshold to where it just doesn't make sense to keep tying more and more wraps or loops. Wraps is the correct term. Because you just to tighten the knot, it just becomes almost impossible. So you want to tie as many wraps as possible, but at the same time, you don't want to go too many, because then tying the knot's going to be tougher. You're actually going to have to burn the line when you go to cinch it down. So you got to find that happy medium. Obviously, the higher pound test you go, the less wraps you need to do. So if I'm tying like a uni knot on mono or fluorocarbon, I'm gonna do about 6 to 10 wraps. It all depends on the line, on the limpness, and every time you go down a pound test, just add a wrap, add a wrap. So if you want, start with 6 on 20 pound test, and you go up, all you need to do is tie 5, do 5 wraps. When you're doing 17, probably do 7. When you're doing 15, do 8. 12 pound, do 9. And the lower you go, the easier it's going to be. The easier you'll be able to throw more wraps into your line as well. So we got a uni knot, we got 2 loop knots. Let's tie the and actually I'm going to use braided line for this one, because that's what this application is usually. This knot, this is where it's usually applied. 50-pound braid, and wet the end, just get that burr out of there, and got ourselves a flipping hook here. We're going to tie a Snell knot. For those of you that don't know how to tie a Snell knot, or don't tie a Snell knot, you need to learn it, because especially when you're working with a straight shank hook, you're going to increase your hookup ratio immensely. You do have to change your hook set a little bit. It's more of a get tight and pull back hard instead of a crack. But when you learn to tie the Snell knot and you learn the hard pull set, fish start coming in the boat. I mean, this is the Gamakatsu Finesse Heavy Cover. I believe this is a 4/0. I throw this when I'm dragging stick worms, like a Gambler Fat Ace or like a Senko style bait, when I'm pulling it through the reeds, especially when they're spawning. Even when I'm making a good long cast, I'll throw out there with a regular knot, get a bite, and my hookup ratio is good, because you're working with a straight shank hook. This is the stickiest hook on the planet. But even when you're throwing a 1/4 ounce weight, you incorporate a Snell knot, you're going to up your hookup ratio so much. But let's get into the knot. So, and here's if you don't remember anything else about this video, remember this. Here's the hook point. Hook point is up. You want your line to come in through the hook point side. Because here's what'll happen. I gotta wet this thing pretty decent. There we go. If you bring your line in through the bottom of your Snell knot, guess what happens? When you go to set the hook point's gonna kick away from the fish's mouth, and you will lose them almost every time. You're like almost reverse hook setting. It's pretty bad. I've never done it, but I've heard somebody has done it, and it costs them a lot of money. But that's a story for another day. So Snell knot, you want your line to go through the top part of the hook. You want to pull out a decent bit of line, probably about, I don't know, 15 inches. I'm gonna get the line. I just pull it down the side of the shank, and I'll just pinch it right there on the shank. And you get your line, your tag line, and you go in front of your hook keeper. And I'm just going to kind of cross it like that one time and go 1. That's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is good. You can go 7, 8, 9, 10 if you want. I honestly like to fill in the entire gap between the hook keeper and the knot. Just like that. Give it a little lube, and you get your tag in right here, and you go through your loop right there, and then you just grab your main line and pull lightly, light. And here's something that might happen while you're tying the Snell knot. The knot's trying to tighten up, and it's trying to wrap around that that hook keeper, that bait keeper. Get your thumbnail and just kind of help it, kick it over. You can actually grab your tag in. Oh, that's a little too tight for that right now, but pull tight, and there your knot is completely clear of your bait keeper. And look how like uniform and even and tight that is. And look, there's still some room between the knot and the hook keeper, because even when you do all these wraps, once you cinch everything down, it's not the best braid cutters, but boom. The fish eats. You got your sinker up here, and you go to set the hook. The sinker is going to compress on that top of that hook, and you're going to think about it this way. You have this much room for the hook to hunt for a spot, for that point to stick in that fish's mouth. When you do this, that point is now here. But you gotta, don't forget, this part of the hook does not go unused, because if this is the fish's mouth and here's your hook, once you snell, it's gonna deflect here and it's gonna want to catch and it's gonna grab. Guys, a Snell knot is a huge part of my fishing. Anytime I'm throwing a worm or flipping anything, I don't care if I'm flipping with a 16th ounce, which I would never do. 16th ounce to a 2 ounce, I'm snelling. All you gotta do, adjust your hook set a little bit, and you're gonna land a lot of fish. All right, guys, final knot of the day, and we're actually going to kind of change angles because I really want you guys to be able to catch this. So you guys don't get to look at my pretty face for a little bit. I'm really sorry about that, but right now the knot's the important part. So we're gonna get our 20-pound mono, aka our leader material, and I'm gonna get my braid over here. This is about 50-pound braid, and we're gonna be tying, I gotta come down here, we're gonna be tying I believe it's called an Alberto or a modified Albright. I really don't know, but I do know it works. And there's a couple of key parts about this knot that you guys need to pay attention to, and if you do this right, this will be, you don't need to tie the FG knot. Is the FG knot still the best knot there is? Yes, it is. But to tie it in the water, out on the water, I'm not a big fan of it. So I'm going to teach you how to tie the Albright. All right, so you got your leader material here, right? You're going to double it. You can even pinch it if you want. It's not a huge kink, but there's enough of a defined bend in the line to accomplish what I want to accomplish here. So we have the bend in the line. Now I'm going to get my braided line, if I can grab it. I'm going to just pick, I'm going to go through that loop, doesn't matter which way. And I personally like to stick my middle finger and catch that loop. And I'll take my braid line, I'm going to go around my double line here, That's creating my loop. I'm gonna go up about 5 to 6 times. I'm gonna pinch the line here. I'm gonna pinch the end of my wraps, and I'm gonna start wrapping back. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. I wanna wrap backwards the opposite direction the same amount of times that I wrapped up. So if I wrap up 5 this way, I wanna wrap 6 back over it this way. When you do the wraps, you want to make sure it's to where if you pull on your tag end, it makes the knot tighter and it doesn't unwind the other side. So we've got that down, and here is the most important part. Look at me in the eyes. This is the most important part. So you want to get, so now we can let go of the loop part where the line, where my braided line goes through my double leader. Just grab, what I like to do, because it never fails me, is you grab the braid and you just want to push it up. And see how the braid, the direction that it's coming out of the knot, it's coming out from underneath, like that. I want my tag end to go back through the same way that the braid is coming in, if that makes sense. So if my braid's coming out through if my main line braid is going through the bottom and out through the top, I want my tag end to go through the top and come out through the bottom, and I want it to be right there next to my main line. So I'm going to get my tag, I'm going to drop it back to the top of the loop, and if you see there, see how they're parallel like that, like they're almost going in the same way? They basically are. We're going to wet that. We're going to pull all 4 ends at the same time. And then you're going to get to a point where some of the, your double leader is not going to want to move. That's when you kind of grab your braid side and just start pulling it back. Pulling it back. All right. They both don't want, all 4 ends don't want to move now. So I'm going to wrap my main line braid. I'm going to wrap my leader material. Get the tags out of the way. And just cinch it tight. Just like that. That knot is super tight, super clean. We'll go through your guides, absolutely no problem. There's a better view for you guys. Very slick, very clean line. And here's the most important part. See how the fluorocarbon, see how the tag end is so tight and close and parallel with the main body of the fluorocarbon? That's just going to make it way easier to go through all your guides. And the thing is, with our fluorocarbon side, we're going to cut that about as flush as we can. There's going to be a little tiny piece sticking out. That's not a big deal. And with our braided side, ignore that these pliers can't cut through freaking anything. We're actually going to leave about 1/4 inch of braid sticking out. We're going to cut that. We're going to pretend that this is a clean cut, even though it's absolutely not. So the reason I leave a little bit of tag end on the braid, again, there's a good bit of fur hanging out, so just ignore that. But that little bit darker part, I'm going to leave that length always hanging off of my alb right here. So the reason I do that is, one, it doesn't affect absolutely anything. This will go through your guides. It won't affect your casting distance. It won't affect your accuracy, and it gives you room for error. So if this knot wants to slip, what's going to slip is this braid. And just having that little bit of leeway is going to help you in the long run. If you feel nervous about this knot, what you can do is cover the knot with your finger, get a lighter, and just burn the end to where the very end of it kind of gets that melted mushroom look to it, and you're good to go. It's not going to come apart. It's not going to fuzz up on you. But guys, this knot, I mean, I tie this with all my top waters, all my spooks. on my inshore applications, because usually I'm using a spinning rod, braided line, and a fairly decent sized leader. And I mean, this gets the job done all the time. So guys, you learned my bait knot, 2 of the loop knots that I use, and my leader knot. And those are literally the 4 knots that I tie all the time. And the Snell knot, can't forget the Snell knot. But those 5 knots are the knots that I tie all the time. I hardly ever vary from it. Yeah, that's my knot system. If you guys have any knots that you like to use that are super effective and get the job done for you, comment below. Except if it's a Palomar knot. I have a huge vendetta against the Palomar knot. Guys, comment, like, subscribe, let me know how I did, tell me if you learned anything, and this is Matt W Fishing. We're out of here.